Okay, hello, David Judge from Affordable Staff, and I have with me
Laura Sillano from Pod Financial.
Pod Financial. What industry is that, Laura?
I'm a mortgage broker.
Excellent. And Laura's here today to talk to us about her outsourcing experience, and you have one team member, Alexis or Alex, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit with Laura about Alex or Alexis and just a general outsourcing experience and really just for people to get an understanding of what it means to outsource and just the approach that we've taken with Laura and you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I have some questions here to ask, and we'll get straight into the first question, which is why you decided to outsource.
Okay, I decided to outsource because I needed assistance in my role in my business in general. And a lot of what I do is I work with a lot of documentation.
Yes.
Once I've seen the client, then there's a lot of follow through for me to deliver on the promises that I've made. So I needed assistance with that if I wanted to grow and if I wanted to develop a really robust business, which is what I wanted to do.
Yeah, okay. And why did you get into the industry?
I love it. Because it was something that it was 10 years ago that I got into the industry.
Wow.
So I don't have a fledgling business anymore. It's actually it's an established business.
Yes.
But I got into it because I wanted to do something that was fundamental with people, and I wanted to be able to have a bit of flexibility as well for myself and for my family, because that's really important to me.
Yeah, certainly.
And I found that mortgage broking was just something I just got. I understood risk.
Yeah.
I understood how to interpret the language of risk and mortgage broking, and that was something that I could then share with other people who didn't necessarily have that skill set or that background.
Okay.
And I think it's a really, really important and valuable skill set to have or to be able to share.
Certainly. And I always joke around and say, because we were in the online marketing industry prior to really going into the outsourcing stuff, that it's like dog years. So it's like we've been doing it for 70 years. Does it sometimes feel like you've been doing it for 70 years?
It does and it doesn't, because I guess there's things that happen that could be considered frustrations, but it's also just accepting that that's what the industry is, and there's opportunity in that as well. So yes, I've been doing it for quite some time, so 10 years is a reasonable amount of time, but it's also I still get joy from it every day because I get to meet the people that I meet. I get to help them achieve what they want to achieve.
Yes.
And so it's a very empowering industry to be in.
That's great. Now, getting back on track to the outsourcing stuff, but it's really, I mean, it is really, really interesting, you know, listening to different people and their industries and how they've gotten into where they have.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've just had to pause and restart because there's a dog next door barking, of course, which is something you don't have when you outsource overseas because we have a serviced office. But for Laura, it means that she's, you know, been able to give the freedom to work everywhere because she has her team operating out of a set place. But going back to it, the next question, all going well with the dog not barking. Trust. Now, trust is certainly an important factor when you're looking at employing somebody locally, you're looking at employing somebody overseas. Now, from an overseas perspective, how important do you see trust?
It's crucial, and it's one of the most important parts of what I do in my business. So building trust on every level, trust with the client, trust with the lenders, trust with my industry is based on it. So and for me, part of it is about how we handle client information, which is really sensitive information, things like ID, things like their bank account details, all of that sort of stuff is something that I need to access to do my job.
Yes.
So therefore I need to have processes around that secure that data. So there's a number of things that we've implemented in working with Alexis and with the team at Affordable Staff. So the documentation that I have never leaves Australia. Everything is password protected. You know, my Alexis has access to certain files, and I know I have visibility right across what she's doing, and it's a paperless office. So that was another thing. There were things that we went through together to understand how the office is set up in the Philippines that gave me confidence.
Yes.
To trust in that process.
And expanding on that, because that's a really good point, that I've found that trust and having an infrastructure in place are critical. Yeah. And the infrastructure is only as good as the human being that's using that infrastructure. But I think that you've had an existing relationship with one of our partners, Nadine, for how long has it been? Like, if not
years.
Yeah.
Years
so.
And years.
So, like for a lot of our clients and the people that are working with our clients, our local people, they know who the people are that they're working with, and they have them there as a support. So, have you found that's an important factor for you as well around the trust?
Absolutely, because people like to work with people that they know and like and trust, and I think that. If I hadn't known Nadine prior, I probably still would have investigated the outsourcing solution, but it would have made it. I just have a level of confidence because I know Nadine.
Yes.
That I would have had to build with somebody else for a longer period of time, I think.
And how do you think you would have gone if you didn't have like the Nadine, or you didn't have the local Australian contact, and it was just someone straight overseas? How do you think? Yeah. Okay.
It's pretty clear. I wouldn't. There's no way because in what I do, the information is so sensitive. Then it is really important that is covered here, and that I know who I'm dealing with. I have an obligation to know my client. And I extend that obligation across to know who I'm dealing with my suppliers as well.
And when we first started looking at outsourcing and setting up an office space, I wanted to have confidence for ourselves when we were doing it. And we met an absolutely brilliant person, Karen, who's a percentage shareholder of our business in the Philippines. We flew over there and met her dad. And asked permission for a dad to let her work with us, and all the stuff you go through.
Marriage.
But that's right, sort of. It is. It's like a marriage, and we really needed to understand who we're dealing with and what the infrastructure and all that sort of stuff, and that's why our guys who work here locally, like Nadine, is able to bridge and be that gap, so you know who you're dealing with as well.
Yeah, crucial.
So leading on from that, and I guess this is really an extension. Why did you choose us?
For that same reason, is that because I already knew who I was dealing with, and then because we worked together for a solution for me and for the business. So I felt supported, and I was confident that my concerns and needs were acknowledged and responded to. The things that were important to me. So some of the things that we did, none of my data leaves Australia.
Yes.
Everything that Alexis does, she does through a terminal in the Philippines, but she accesses everything through my own system. So she's logging in to my portal.
Yes.
So that, for me, that was really, really important as well.
And let's expand on that, because you had some issues with us, didn't you? Like with the team member, not with us.
I didn't have issues with affordable staff or with the team member. What I had was when I initially put out the job description or thought about what I had needed, I thought I needed a particular skill set because I hadn't done it before.
Yes.
And what ended up happening was I got the person with that skill set, and then through working with her, I put a lot of time into the systems. I think when you put a person on, you need to support them to set them up to succeed, because if you don't give them a system to work with, all you're doing is setting them up for failure.
Yes.
So I needed to develop my system, which I did, and then we at the same time we were working with the person who I specifically asked for.
Yes.
And it turned out that through that process, I recognised that I actually needed a slightly different skill set. She was valuable and she did the tasks that I needed her to do, but there were things that she didn't have in terms of experience that I didn't realise I actually needed.
Yeah.
Until I put her on. And then I went, that's the gap.
Yes.
But until you know and you put somebody on, how can you tell what the gap is?
And how do we handle that?
Really well.
Yeah, what did we do? Just for everybody watching.
So one of the reasons that I went to outsourcing was that I didn't want to deal with the hiring or firing and things like that. I don't have that skill set and I don't have the time. So I wanted somebody to manage that process for me. And I literally just said to Nadine, Nadine, there's a number, I don't think that she's getting I don't think that she's going to get the understanding that I need her to get in the time frame that I needed to do it.
Yes.
And so there was a hire that was put out for another broker actually, and he ended up not being ready to take her on. And the two of them were working together.
Yes.
So they were working as a team, and I'd seen the progress that they made together as a team was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And in the end though, we had to choose just one because I went, well, I can't have both. So I ended up selecting the newer employee.
Yes.
Because she had more of the skill set that I was actually looking for, and I could see that through the work and the tasks that they were doing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it is always one of the keys for us is that, you'll have your client and you'll have your team member overseas. And for us, it's always been very important to help bridge that gap. And like you said, there are challenges that come up.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the reasons why people continue to work with us and our model, which has taken a long time to get to, our model is that, that we really want to focus on, okay, how's the client going? How's the team member going? If there are ever any gaps, we communicate that. Keep those communication channels flowing, because it's easy enough when someone's sitting in that place and another person's sitting in that place for it not to happen. So it's big for us to keep those communication channels flowing.
Yeah.
And there are times, and I mentioned this to you before we started the interview, that there are times when we talk to clients and we say to them, hey, you're not holding up your side. This is where we're at now, and this is where we need to be at. How is it we're going to get there?
Yeah.
So it's a big thing. It's a big thing for us to keep that communication channel flowing.
Yeah, I think as an employer, if I were to hire someone directly here, I would have a responsibility to that person to make sure that they know what their job is and to give them clear guidelines around what their tasks are, and to make sure that they understand what they need to perform in their role. I believe that most people want to do a good job.
Yes.
I don't think there's many people out there, I don't know, maybe there are, but my experience is that people want to feel successful at what they do. And so as an employer or as somebody who is a client, it is, I believe, my responsibility to make sure that I do set them up to succeed in that role.
Yes.
And then I can make a judgment call to go, if they're not succeeding, is it because there's a lack of understanding there? Can that lack of understanding be bridged through education? Or is it just simply that they're just not ready for that role?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that wonderfully leads into the next question. Limitations. At this stage, what limitations have you found around outsourcing?
Limitations. Okay, so I think for outsourcing to work really well, we need to embrace technology. So it's things like having an understanding of how to communicate, what types of platforms are available to communicate. In my role and in my industry, I need to embrace technology anyway.
Yes.
Because I'm constantly dealing in the management of information. So storing it, collecting it, sharing it, whatever it is, I'm dealing with information. So therefore technology and the use of it is critical in my business and in my industry.
Yes.
So I think that if you've got an older style business where you're working with phone and maybe just a desktop computer or something like that, and you haven't embraced some of the things that are around there, that could be something that would be limiting. But I think that's about where do you want to go with your business.
Yes.
If to really grow, we need to embrace technology because it's here.
And I also like what you said beforehand about a limitation being an opportunity as well.
Yeah, it is. If there's if there is a limitation around how something is done, then that's an opportunity to do it differently, or to grow, or to find another way.
Yes.
So I don't see limitations as a bad thing. I see them as something that helps us to grow into a better business or a better person.
Very true. And it's funny, going on the journey, the outsourcing journey, constantly when you're dealing with other countries, you come across limitations. And whilst there are certainly times where we'll sit and we'll go, again, you have to sit down and really think about the direction you're going. Okay, and like you said, what is this limitation that's being presented to us, and what is the solution? What is the workaround? What is it we can do to overcome the limitation? Because at the end of the day, I've always found, and we've found as a business, that a limitation is defined by the people that are a part of the business and what you're prepared to do in order to be able to make it work.
Yeah, and the other thing that people might think, English might be a limitation, or the language skill might be a limitation, or something like that. I haven't really found that to be an issue. I've found that the English skills of all of the people that I've spoken to in the Philippines have been excellent.
Yes.
Are there any other things that I can think of in terms of limitations?
Well, it's funny because you spoke about English when we visit and we go through all the universities and high schools. Everybody's talking English, and they've got all these big signs everywhere that say English only, please.
Yeah.
Very polite. English only, please, everywhere. So everywhere you go, everybody's talking English.
I think they probably understand that English is the language that a lot of countries will be doing business in, and if they want to be an outsourcing solution, and they have the skill set to be able to do it,
yes,
then they need to speak the language of the clients who are going to use those services. They just have to.
Yes.
So, yeah, I found that the language skills have actually been really quite high. And, yeah, I've been really happy with the communication that we've been able to have.
Yes.
And I can see... sorry, I keep on looking over that way because that's where my computer is.
That's where Laura works.
That's where my computer is, and that's my automatic call to. That's where Alexis is as well. So I kind of associate that corner of the office with Alexis. So yeah, it's been really good. That's what I was going to say, is that the limitations have allowed me to build a better business model because the limitations show me where the holes in my business are.
Yes.
Because I need to create a robust business that can deliver on the things that I promise to a client. And that means that I need to have all of those gaps filled. And there is nothing like somebody who is doing a job for you with a job process that you've written for them.
Yes.
And then they interpret it in their own way to help you realise where the holes in your business are.
That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point.
So I've used that process to build a much more robust business.
Yes. Yeah. So what does your industry, because we're talking about your business now, what does your industry think about outsourcing?
They use it everywhere.
Yes.
So if you think about my industry is financial services.
Yes.
Okay. So banks outsource. They outsource their documentation procedures. They outsource their call centres for client service. Some of them outsource their credit departments. So the lenders outsource to India or to the Philippines or to wherever they go. So they've seen that that's probably a more profitable way for them to run. The aggregators. So I aggregate through an aggregator to get access to the lenders.
Yes.
They outsource as well. they'll outsource marketing. There's a whole lot of things. They're already using it. They're already using it. So it's just about how we manage the information transfer. That's it.
Yes.
In my view.
Yeah, and it's funny because we have a number of clients in the similar industry, and it how long is it? Like, obviously, you've been 10 years. Longer than 10 years, we've had, people outsourcing the information and the process and the tasks from the big guys.
Yeah.
But it's been longer than 10 years, hasn't it?
Oh, I'd say they've been, I don't know. I'd say that they'd been doing it for a while. I think what's changed is that we have access to such much better communication capability now through things like email, and then when I started, you were faxing supporting documentation.
Yes.
Like that, and then if the fax jammed through 40 pages, that was really irritating. But now you just email it, or now lenders are also moving to a supporting documentation online where you submit it in the portal.
Yes.
So it's not even email anymore. We're moving beyond email. Email is becoming an outdated technology.
Yes. And I mean, other technologies as well, like Zoom and Skype, and there are so many. When I was a kid, I remember many moons ago, it used to be a big deal to write a letter and to put a stamp on it and to send it.
Yeah.
And then I think of that nowadays and I think, wow, it's very genuine, but it's a very antiquated way of transmitting.
It's a really old way to communicate, which is terrific, I think, for things that are personal.
Yes.
Where you actually want to make someone feel special. But in terms of business efficiency, we don't need to do it anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you could even outsource mailing of documentation. I know there's outsource centres where you can outsource that as well. But anyway, moving on. Last question, and this is an important one. What would you say to somebody that is considering outsourcing? Now, first of all within your industry, and then just in general.
Okay. This actually applies to both. Have a strategic plan for how you want to implement an outsourced solution, and know the tasks for what you want that person to do.
Yes.
So you need to have a job description, and you need to think about the tasks that you actually want them to do. And then you need to think about how you're going to communicate those tasks and report back on them. So I would work with the team in Australia to make sure that your technology is up to scratch on that. Yes. Really, really important that your technology is up to scratch, because if it's not, it'll just impede the communication process. So having that strategic plan is really important. And then keep an open mind. Yes. Be constantly talking with your staff member, be constantly getting feedback to see where, and watching to see whether there's a gap in your system, or whether there's a gap in their knowledge. Yes. Or whether there's a gap in just their experience. Yeah. Yeah, and that's really, really valuable information, because like I've always said, the importance of keeping those communication channels flowing all the time, embracing the technology, and really, I guess it's like we spoke about beforehand, limitations and opportunities. Outsourcing in so many ways is like an opportunity for you to grow and expand, and like you said, fill those holes in your business. So to really be aware of the way that you've been doing business historically, like you said, if you're a paper-driven and fact-driven, and then what the opportunity is, and then looking at ways you can embrace it. Because, I mean, I haven't met very many people that like change, but change in business and survival in business comes as a result of, being able to take that plunge and make the change. The other thing to bear in mind, I think, is just to understand what it is that your VA actually sees. So to work with the technology that they will be working with, because they're in a paperless office. Yes. And they don't have a printer.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so if you're accustomed to seeing things in a particular way or doing things in a particular way, you need to understand that they won't have access for that, and the reason for that is because it's a more secure environment. If you have loose paper, that's something that can be removed.
Yes.
If it's all done on screen, it's not something that can be removed. So it's understanding those things is really important, because when you ask somebody to do a particular task, if you assume that they have the same view on their screen as what you have, or they have the same accessibility to information that you have, and they don't, then you're asking them to do something that they can't do. So it's really important to understand what technology they have at their disposal to do the task that you've asked them to do.
Yes, okay. But fantastic advice, actually, because it's made me think about a couple of areas as well, especially around the accessibility, because, I mean, we went paperless within the overseas environment a while ago because of, again, security. But you're right, if they don't have that view and they don't have the same level of control and access that you have, then it can certainly make it a little bit more challenging for them to perform their role. So, again, great advice, and make sure anyone watching, write that part down, because that's important.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. I really appreciate your time and coming through and letting us visit you and your workplace. And for anyone that has any questions around outsourcing, I encourage you to get in contact with us. I mean, this is something that all of the people that are a part of the business here in Australia as well as overseas, we're really passionate about it. We love it. There are days, obviously, where we don't love it so much, when things don't go as they're supposed to go, but that's what it is in business. But we always look for the solution, and we always look to help the client to achieve that result that they want to achieve. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. So David Judge here again from Affordable Staff, and Laura from
Pod Financial.
And take care. Very nice talking, and talk again soon.
Thanks.